I wasn't aware of the MSP program initially. A colleague of mine, I worked at Brooklyn College, and a colleague of mine, who was actually the daughter of Thomas Cowan, suggested I apply to Rutgers Law School. She said that school and I would be perfect together. She was right. And after I applied, I became aware of the MSP program. I met with Wade Henderson.
Who was the dean at the time?
He was the MSP dean at the time, the assistant dean. And we talked about the day school and the night school, which was just starting. And I decided I wanted to go to the night school so I could keep my job. I was married and we had a child, and so that's what I did. My engagement with the MSP program really didn't start until my fourth semester, after I had finished all of our required courses, and I began to meet more of the minority students here. That first 3 semesters, my identification was with the night school. There were 60 students, and we were the first ones, and a lot of people didn't want us here. So that was really my identification.
MSP program.
The legislature had basically forced the law school to adopt a night program. They hadn't had one since the 1950s, and there were a lot of professors nationwide who thought you couldn't study the law at night part-time. So that's why a lot of the professors here didn't want the law school to adopt a night program. The legislature made them. We knew that there were some professors who didn't want to do it, that they were more traditional, and that they didn't believe that the law could be studied part-time while you're working full-time. It required immersion. So, so we had to prove that we could do what they said we couldn't do. There were night programs all over the place, but that was the attitude of some professors.
Did that
There were, I think, plenty of minority students in the night program, but that really wasn't a focus. I mean, we were all there and we knew it, but there were so many students that it didn't seem like we were just tokens. I always felt like I belonged at Rutgers. I never felt like I was an add-on. Well, I was in the MSP program. I just didn't participate in the summer program because I was working in the summer. And I wasn't, in the student organizations. I wasn't in any student organizations. We came here at night, we went to classes, we went home.
So you always felt included?
I always felt included from a diversity perspective because there were so many of us here, and I never felt like there wasn't anything I couldn't do. Well, I got my bachelor's and my master's at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Brooklyn College because I was working.
I meant Penn State, I'm sorry, Pennsylvania, yeah.
So I went to Brooklyn College a year after I got my master's for a job, and I was working in the open admissions program as an instructor, but the instructor line terminates after 5 years, so you had to get a PhD or equivalent degree, and one of the equivalent degrees was a JD. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I said, well, this is my chance again, and I took it. So instead of getting a PhD in counseling psych, I got a law degree.
And your friend was right about Rutgers.
Oh, she was absolutely right about Rutgers. I mean, there's an energy here. The commitment to social justice was long and deep. We had the professors we had were just trailblazers. I mean, I had Arthur Kanoy for 3 classes, one of the most outstanding people I've ever met. Alan Axelrod was a professor here. He circulated between Harvard, Stanford, and here. So I took him whenever he was here, no matter what he taught, because he was just such a great teacher. Um, it was just, there were the clinics, the Constitutional Litigation Clinic, and all
By
of the
Frank
others
Askin.
by Frank Askin. And in fact, in my fourth semester, one of the electives I took was a seminar that helped to write the school's amicus brief in the Bakke case. And with that, Anna Mae Shepard and Jonathan Hyman, I worked closely with them. And that became one of the things that really, I think, formed me as a lawyer, was working in collaboration with the others at Rutgers and on that case. And so we were writing the brief, doing the research, demonstrating. There was nothing like it.
And such a profound case when you're talking about inclusion and social justice.
Well, it's not only a profound case that Rutgers had to change the minority student program as a result. And so it was something. It was something. And as a college student, I demonstrated at Penn State to establish the Educational Opportunity Program. Then after college, I got to work in it. Then I got to work in open admissions. And then I became part of the minority student program here. That's a blessed life. Well, look, it's the law firm environment, the major law firm environment in New Jersey was and still is highly segregated. There was even less penetration of people of color at that time. But even in, government offices, in the upper positions of the Attorney General's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, the Public Defender's office, federal and state, judges. I mean, it was not a diverse environment in 1979. I was fortunate enough that I went to Lowenstein-Sandler, and Lowenstein had the reputation that it was interested in lawyers of color. And the dean sent me to Lowenstein and called Lowenstein and told them they had to interview me after I won the moot court competition. And we were basically brought together and by Helen Hoffman. I had no plans to apply to private law firms. I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer, and this was the antithesis of that. They had no plans to keep interviewing. They had hired their summer associates. So there we were. I think so. We're sought out, and you find graduates from the minority students from Rutgers in every phase of our occupation, our profession, in-house counsel, all through the judgeships, U.S. Attorney's Office, New Jersey Attorney General, New York Attorney General, Manhattan DA. You go to D.C. and it's like Old Home Week. And really all across the country. All across the country, you run into Rutgers people all over the place.
The reputation speaks for itself?
I think the reputation does speak for itself. And you've got really, the opportunity and the excellence have merged. The importance of the internships for law students generally, clients aren't willing to pay for the training of lawyers anymore. And as a result, law firms and other legal employers want the attorneys to come out of law school already having work experience. So the internships are invaluable, they're essential. And so providing as many of those as possible.
And specifically for minority students?
and specifically for minority students, I think is just is so essential that you have to create that opportunity for people. And making the gift to Rutgers, to me, I've always given to Rutgers, so making a large gift was just sort of a step up because we're in this fundraising campaign, and to me, I was delighted to do it. I think the mentorship that I do, I think is more pragmatic. I mean, I know that the students sometimes think that they get to meet and work with this guy that's well known. And I often wonder why they want to talk to somebody so old. But it's been really rewarding, I think, for both of us, because the law students today confront stuff I never had to confront. I've heard the other day that modern law firms now want students to know how to code. The demand to be up to speed immediately is horrendous. So the pressure is enormous. So having the ability to talk to someone about the practical steps, about what the world is really like, is something that, you know, many of the students in the minority student program don't have access to professionals in their families to just talk to about what life is like. So, you know, explaining to people what it's like and how to get from where they are to where they want to be and the steps they need to take is rewarding for me, and I hope it's helpful to them. And I've mentored people where I followed them through. Some of them are pretty old now. I see these people I mentored, they got gray hair. And it's, you know, it's nice to be able to have done that and to see people grow into these fabulous lawyers and judges.
Can't put a price on that, right?
You can't put a price on that. I think the 50 years is momentous for a couple of reasons. The program really emerges from the rebellion in Newark. And that genesis, I think, adds to the controversy. But there were programs being established all over the country around the same time for different reasons, but in part because the schools, at least, were recognizing that they had excluded black and brown people for centuries from colleges and universities and law schools and med schools, and they recognized they had to begin to rectify that. So it was starting all over the country. In Rutgers, Newark, following the rebellion, it spawned it. It's gone through a lot of changes because there have been a lot of challenges. And the changes have been the ability to adapt and to remain and to excel. So I once saw a quote by Freud, or no, Darwin, it was Darwin. Darwin said that it wasn't the strongest or the fittest or the smartest who survived. It was those who were able to adapt. And the minority student program has adapted. After Bakke expanded the program to include disadvantaged whites. There was another challenge where our firm was hired. We represented Rutgers at the time, and we were hired, and I got to work on the program where there was another challenge during the Bush administration. And even though the complaint was dismissed, the Office of Civil Rights remained involved in the case, and we had to change the program again. But a lot of schools abandoned the program. Some schools never started one because of the difficulties. So the ability to stay speaks to the commitment of this faculty, this university, and the students who are graduates and the students who are here, that you don't have all those components, you don't survive. If you're unwilling or unable to adapt, you don't survive. That kind of intelligence and adaptability really is setting us in place to see and capture the future.
Something only found at Rutgers Law School?
Well, I won't say it's only found at Rutgers Law School. I just don't know any place that has it.
That.
I would say that if you look, I mean, people talk about slavery as if that's the source of the contemporary problems. To me, that's not the source. The source is really the 100 years after slavery, because that's when the propaganda about the inferiority of black people really was ramped up and taken and ingrained in the DNA of the United States. We cannot overcome that in 50 years. And in fact, and it's so deep and so persistent that you see it doesn't take very much to bring out the ugliness all over again. And right now, we're in a period of ugliness. It's like the 1920s, right? I mean, the 1920s was a really ugly period. The NAACP would hang up a sign outside of its headquarters: another black man lynched today, another 4 black men lynched today. And that was happening every day. So we are in a period of ugliness. And now is even more important for lawyers in this kind of program from this kind of school to stand strong, look ahead, see what we need to do and to do it, and have the capability to do it. What this program does for social justice is that there are more people who understand that there is social injustice. And where we can, we try to fix that. Or, as a pastor down in Highland Park, obstruct injustice. And it's not only that we are doing it, but we have colleagues who never heard of MSP, who come to understand that there's social injustice through us and the commitment that we have. So even if we are in a private law firm, a corporation, we're sitting on the bench, doesn't matter where we are, we carry who we are with us. And who we are is pretty great. And we meet other great people who are open-minded or need information or need an understanding, and we can bring it to them. And so we can expand our message much more than if we just turn inward. So this opportunity we have today in this period of ugliness is an opportunity to educate and to demonstrate who we are and what America is, because we and America are the same thing. I don't know whether it's more important than ever before, because there's been a lot of ever befores, but it is certainly important, and is certainly important to reaffirm, to have programs like this that are forward-looking, creating opportunity, and demonstrating excellence. We often talk about, here and elsewhere, that we stand on the shoulders of giants. At my age, you begin to think about there's going to be a time soon when we have to provide the shoulders on which others stand. And the scariest thing about that is not having to support others or not having to remain rooted in the tradition that gave you the strength to be who you are, but that you can't see what those who are standing on your shoulders see. And you have to trust that as you provide the tradition, that they will have the vision to carry on. And that is hard, to give up being the ones who see.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You did so well.